Okay, I'm really excited about our next speaker. His name is Michael Clark, and if you had read his bio, you'll know why. It's an amazing example of action, something we've been talking about earlier today as well, because today's a day of action, right? Not just listening. And this is a great example of something that Michael experienced and was able to then translate using his passion into something that he's been doing now. So I'll let him explain some of the next steps. Go ahead.
What would I give up to save a life? Would I give up my car, my job? Would I give up my lunch for a day? Would I give up, I don't know, my coffee for a week, or even my razor for a day? Every 5 seconds, a child dies from hunger-related causes. Children in Uganda that are born with a cleft palate are automatically given the name AJOC, which means cursed by God. The average American spends $14 a week on coffee, which is almost enough to provide clean water for life for an individual in the third world. So what would I give up? What would you give up? 2.5 years ago, I sat in a small school in Peru for special needs kids, and it was lunchtime. And I was helping the 6 special needs boys that Lily had sent me to help as part of Connecting Hearts Abroad eat their lunch. And I was heartbroken because these kids were taking out sandwiches on moldy bread, bananas that were starting to go bad, mystery foods that I didn't know what it was, and I certainly wouldn't want to eat it myself. And it crushed me because I knew that we needed to make sure that they ate everything that day, because we didn't know if they would eat again. We didn't know if they would eat dinner. At the time, my twin daughters were 2 years old, and I knew that I would do absolutely anything to make sure that Cassie and Emmy had enough food and had healthy food. So in that moment, I was soaked, I was drenched by compassion. And at that moment in time, Matthias, a blind 6-year-old boy with Down syndrome and no muscle control, he became the face of my first mountain. So what do I mean by a mountain? It's actually pretty simple. A mountain is it's an obstacle in your life. It's a challenge. It's a peak to climb. It's a barricade through which to tunnel. A mountain size is dictated significantly by your perception of its scale. But a mountain doesn't have to be scary. A mountain can be beautiful. A mountain can be inspiring. A mountain can be a changing point in your life, a takeoff point. A mountain can be mysterious. For some people, a mountain might be getting a promotion or getting a new job. For some, it's getting a date with that cute girl down the hall. For some of us, it's just trying to get our kids to eat their vegetables. For some of us, it's trying to feed 1 million children in one day. The first thing that we need to do is to clearly identify our mountain, name it. And so Matthias became the face of my first mountain. It's a pretty big mountain though, I'll be honest with you. And I knew that I couldn't do it myself. I lacked the means, I lacked the ability to move that mountain myself. So I needed to saturate in something, I needed to soak in something, I needed to figure out a way to get that mountain to move to a road. And that's the thing. If you want to move a mountain, what do you really need? You need erosion, right? And erosion is simply a factor of time and saturation. Time is really tricky to control. Saturation is a lot easier though, because we're all like sponges. We absorb the influences that are around us. We absorb the situations that we put ourselves in. At the same time, we also overflow and we influence others. We can choose many of the things that surround us. Some of those things are good, and some of those things are not so good. You want to live a life of anger and strife? That's your prerogative, that's your choice. Put yourself in an environment that's full of that. But, if you want that promotion, if you want that new job, put yourself in a situation where you're soaking in the intricacies and the nuances of your calling, of your career. You want to date with that girl down the hall? Fantastic. Soak yourself in honor, respect, and dignity. If you want to get your kids to eat their vegetables, don't ask me, I'm not the right guy for that, but there's probably a TED talk about that somewhere. What's awesome though too is we can choose to reinvent ourselves, and that's what today's about, right? It's reinvention. We can choose to wring out some of the stinky, dirty water that's in our sponge. We can choose to fill ourselves up, to soak up with something fresh and new. I come from Hershey, Pennsylvania, the sweetest place on earth. That's what all the billboards tell you, at least. It's the home of Hershey chocolate. What a lot of people don't know is that Milton Hershey was 43 years old when he made his first Hershey chocolate bar. You drive through the community now, you drive through anywhere in central Pennsylvania, and you can feel the ripples of his influence. And that's the secret. That's the secret. It's not when we are full that we succeed. It's when we overflow. It's when our sponges become so wet and so saturated that they wet the ground under our mountain and our mountain begins to move. That is erosion. That is erosion, and that's where the magic happens. Sometimes erosion can be quick and sudden and violent, like a landslide. But more often than not, erosion takes a very long time. Sometimes erosion happens around our mountains in ways that are even more exciting and wonderful and just phenomenal than we could ever imagine. It's pretty cool. See, for me, I always knew that I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to make a difference in the world. I didn't know what that meant, though. I didn't know what it looked like. I remember about 5 years ago getting the Compassion International Christmas catalog. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. Similar to the Heifer catalog. And I remember flipping through and looking at the livestock that I could purchase for a family in Africa or a family in El Salvador, and recognizing that for a small sacrifice, I could purchase some goats, or I could purchase some sheep or a chicken for a family and change their life, change the trajectory of their life, change a community. It wouldn't take a lot. And at that point in time, a seed was planted in my heart, just a seed of compassion. But it wasn't until I got to Lima, and it wasn't until I was saturated in compassion that I finally started to understand, and I finally started to overflow. So when I got back from Lima, I started something called Small Sacrifice. Small Sacrifice is a pretty simple idea. It's a movement, but it's really simple. Basically, what I do is I use social media to get people to give up something small on a specific day for a specific cause. And we share the money that we would have spent on that item with a well-vetted organization. Basically, what I do is I just help other people to soak in compassion. I help other people to become saturated with compassion, and together we move that mountain. 2 years ago, I asked people on a very specific day to give up their lunches. We take the money that we would have spent on our lunches and share it with an organization called Feed My Starving Children. How awesome is this? We had 6 out of 7 continents actually participate. People from over 20 countries gave up their lunches for others. At the end of the week, we raised about 20,000 meals. I know it's still far away from a million meals, but erosion takes time. And I'll celebrate that small success. The next mountain, Abdul Wahab, cleft palate, Ethiopia. The solution? Ask people to give up their razors and their makeup, to feel ugly for a day, and to share that money with Cure International to provide surgeries for people like Abdul Wahab. Today, 34 children see themselves differently every time they look in a mirror. That's awesome. That's awesome. We've been able to raise the funds to provide clean water for 20 families for the rest of their lives, 1 cup of coffee at a time. And here's the thing. Mountains don't have to be far away. Mountains can be in our backyard, and most of the time they are. We recently worked with an organization called Power Packs Project in central Pennsylvania, which provides weekend meals for kids that are on school lunch programs. Just by people giving up their Valentine's cards, roses, whatever, we were able to provide 35 kids with weekend meals for an entire year. Think about the outsized payoff for these small sacrifices. In the very near future, we're going to be working with Crayons Matter. I'm sure you remember Courtney Fields from last year. She was awesome. And we're going to be looking to make some change for some kids in Africa, 1 crayon at a time. So keep your eyes peeled on how you can become part of that movement. It's going to be a lot of fun. Ultimately, though, this isn't about small sacrifice. This isn't about me. This isn't about anything that I've done. I'm just simply holding up my experiences as examples of what a mountain might look like, of how you can soak in these things and how you can start to watch your mountain get moved. Ultimately, this is all about you, because you are gifted. You are talented. You have skills. You are already moving the world. It's awesome. There are mountains all around us, and each of you has a mountain, but there are no such thing as a small mountain. Tutoring the kid down the street, that is a noble mountain. Wanting to better your job and your career so your family can have a better life, that is a noble mountain. wanting to shovel the lady's driveway across the street when the snow falls. That is a noble mountain, especially if you're from central Pennsylvania, because that mountain is literally a mountain. Seriously, my back is, yeah. There are mountains all around us, though. We just need to see them, we need to name them, and we need to do something about it. So what are you going to do about it? Let me help. First thing we need to do is we need to name our mountains. We need to clearly identify what they are. Gain some fresh perspective. For you, maybe it's a personal goal. Maybe you've always wanted to run a marathon or do an Ironman. For other people, maybe it's a promotion or a job that you've always wanted. Name it. Second thing that we need to do is saturate. What is the force that's going to erode our mountain? Find it, soak in it, saturate in it. For me, it was compassion, but maybe for you, it's exercise. Maybe for you, it's education. And finally, erode. We're going to overflow and we're going to erode. Because it's when we overflow that the magic happens. Recognize that we're always influencing. We're always influencing the people around us. So are you detracting? Are you inspiring them? Let's choose to inspire. In everybody's swag bag, you got a little mystery business card with a weird little sponge on it. I saw people kind of looking at it and saying, what is that thing? It's pretty simple. This little sponge is a visual reminder to you. I'm going to ask you to put this someplace. To remind yourself that you are a sponge. To remind yourself that you have the ability to influence others, and at the same time, put yourself in a place where you're soaking up what you need to move your unique mountain. Each of you matter. Each of you has the opportunity to change the world. And I'm not talking about the universe. I'm talking about your own personal mountain, and I know that you will if you want to. Name it, saturate, and overflow. I'm going to ask you guys the same question now that I asked myself 2.5 years ago. What would you give up to save a life? Name it, saturate, overflow.